as most of you can tell if you've been on my channel for a long time, or if you interacted with me at some point or another, or you're just listening to this right now, I am from British descent, and yet somehow, some way, some why, I've never talked about Doctor Who on this channel. I know, right? I was worried I was going to have the Queen sentence me to death for a minute there. But finally, I found a chance to talk about the good old sci-fi show the BBC seems to tolerate but not really know what to do with most of the time. And joining me to talk about this marvellous, messy, brilliant thing of a show is once again the one and only Time Lord I rescued from the moment itself, Joel.
Wow, well, getting out of the Time War is something. All those Daleks shout and exterminate at me. Oi.
I know, right? We don't talk about it. But if you want to learn more about it, he will be starring in audiobooks coming soon.
Thank you, Nick Briggs.
So yeah, I guess specifically what we're going to be talking about Doctor Who here is for anyone who's kept up the recent series of Doctor Who with the 13th Doctor, Jodie Whittaker got a lot of positive press buzz. Opinions may be varied from some fan circles, some more justified than others, but overall it was a successful season. But most of all, it was very classic villain light. Apart from the last most recent episode special Thingamajiggy with the Dalek, there was no classic villains in this series for the most part. Maybe a few references here and there. So what me and Joel are going to be talking about for this, however long we go for, is what classic villains we'd like to see turn back up, any ideas we have for them, or just some of our favourites that haven't been utilised in New Ho, maybe as much as we'd like them to be.
Yeah, I remember that Doctor Who episode with Doc was like, I am going to use this thingamajiggy with the Mahoozits to exterminate everyone. That sounds like a Doctor Who episode to me.
I mean, you're right. So yeah, first things, because we've kind of been on a Dalek thing, I know you are a big fan of Davros.
Oh yeah, I love Davros. He's my favorite. He's honestly my favorite Doctor Who character, period. That's how much I love him.
Right, and I guess just before we go into what we would like to see done with him, how have you been a fan of what has been done with him in New 2, starting from Journey's End onward?
So I like Journey's End quite a lot. It's actually the episode that got me, finally made me a fan of Doctor Who. Because and I'll get into this a little bit more when I do if we ever do a Davies v. Moffat kind of a situation. But I love the way Davies utilized him as the final villain of the Tennant run, even though it's technically Rassilon the Master if you count the specials. But if you don't count the specials, then Davros is the penultimate villain, and his plan is just so bonkers. I'm just gonna wipe out all the universe,
all of reality.
I know, and it's just so over the top and bombastic, but it's also, to me, the way I like Davies' usage of Davros is like the Emperor from Star Wars. He's Palpatine. And even the way you talk about his Dalek Empire. It's very much it's like the Luke confronting the Emperor kind of a situation.
Joel just likes old men in chairs, which this is where we go with.
yeah, that's the theme here. All the guys and all the old elderly men in chairs. But just there was such gravitas to the two of them meeting each other again, and just sort of their relationship that I quite enjoyed. But if I can move on to the Moffat era's appearance, if you don't mind.
Yeah.
What I really liked about that is it reminded me, and I guess I watched it at the right time because I was really into Big Finish. And I felt like I was watching a Big Finish audio drama when I was watching Capaldi and Davros together, because the way they just were talking to one another, because that's the beauty of how Big Finish does it. It's never a shouting match. Davros in Big Finish is always he's a lot more calmer and subtle in his just the way he acts. And in the Moffat era, I felt that way as well. That just these two old men who've been through so much, just talking to one another, just sitting down, having a conversation, and just discussing their in Davros' case, twisted ideologies. It's just it reminded me so much of a Big Finish audio drama. like and just the way Davros seems to be like one of the few Doctor Who villains that can really get under the Doctor's skin in a way I don't even think the Master can.
Yeah, because
Um,
he's very much I more than anyone in the show. Davros is like the opposite of what the Doctor stands for. Is where what is the opposite of a doctor would be a war profiteer or a war scientist. Is someone who uses their knowledge not to heal people but to create weapons of death. And that's very much like even more than subjugating people. Is because the master can spin that into, oh no, I'm helping people because they're under my rule, they'll be safer. You can spin that into kind of a doctor analog, but a twisted one. Davros is directly the antithesis of a doctor. Is where he's like, no, I create weapons of war, and I've created the greatest war weapon in the history of all of time and space. And then getting the doctor have to face with this person that embodies everything he stands against, but at the same time he's so eloquent and he's so calm and he verbalizes his argument, sick as it may be, in such an intelligent way. You can't help but feel like some semblance of respect, because whenever Davros speaks, when he's handled well, he's got, like the Doctor is, no matter how crazy he may be, he always makes his arguments sound plausible. Even when he's talking about destroying all life in the universe, he makes it sound so like simple or so perfect. So I really appreciate about that Davros, and that's seeing him come back in a new series of Who, playing against Jodie. I think would be interesting because I feel like she's, unlike Capaldi, she hasn't really had a chance to have that intellectual equal yet.
actually, this is kind of one of my issues with, I guess, Series 11 is the lack of the classic villains. Because actually, my favorite, probably my favorite episode is the one with the Daleks, it's Resolution. Although, I guess if I had to pick just the series, I like Rosa and Demons at the Punjab quite a bit, but definitely standouts there. Um, but I definitely felt the lack of villains, or at least classic villains, kind of felt made the series lacking in a way.
Like a bit too
Um,
easy.
a bit. It was definitely a very soft season, definitely, and I'm okay with that for Series 11 because I think that was kind of the point. Kind of after years of Moffat's bombacity and weirdness that comes with the Moffat. Sometimes I felt like okay, you can get away with like just a nice little okay, just some Doctor Who. Don't need to think too hard about it. No weird time distortions here. Just some good old fashioned adventures with some fun people. But I definitely hope for some return of classic villains because I think we got to up our game now. That's just
Right.
me.
No, I'm pretty much agreeing with you, and like, I feel like that why that is important is because the classic villains normally do bring with them this sense of threat, this sense of, oh, this is a big deal now, which I thought was missing a little bit, especially because I feel like one of my favorite Doctors, despite some of his material now and again, is Peter Capaldi. And what I really liked about Capaldi is he brought with him this weight of, I have been through all this life. I'm over 15,000 years old. I've gone through everything, and I'm still going through everything. I'm still finding new challenges. But every time I face a new challenge, I come at it with the intelligence of someone who's gone through this entire legacy. Um, and Jodie certainly, I feel like, can pull that off. Is there are moments where she can, but I feel like she hasn't had a threat as of yet that has forced her to rise to that occasion, to where she'll give this like hard, like epic style, epic speech, and really embody what the Doctor is to me as this person who will not stop and has a quick thought out answer to nearly every situation, despite it coming at the last second sometimes. And I really want to see her pull that off. Someone like Davros, I think, would be perfect, but and also another person who I feel like would be very interesting to see square off against Jodie, depending on what version or even what gender you decide to go for, it is the Master.
I have conflicting thoughts about the Master these days. I love
Right.
the Master. Don't get me wrong. Um, it would I would be very curious to see how they do it because I don't know about you, but I'm in the camp that likes Missy and I like the conclusion she had, where I feel like you could have ended the character there.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Obviously you're not going to. Like I know they're not going to. No Doctor Who character ever dies. I
But
mean,
see, the
Magic
thing with that though is I'm kind of how I would do it personally is I would be, all right, Missy is the end. That is the Trenzalore for the Master, is that we have seen how the Master will eventually die. You don't know how many regenerations there are in between her and John Sim.
That is true. And if they do it that way, I would be more than okay with that because I think even in the Big Finish audios, the Master and the Doctor's timelines are a little bit scuffled. Um, I'm not. I mean, I do the weird. I'm like the weird timeline person. Like I love trying to figure out where the timelines all meet up and the continuity and stuff like that. Because I'm crazy and obsessive that way. Um, but I do think like they can easily do that. Where it's like, oh, it's just the Master before he became Missy, and so it's like the Doctor kind of knows where they might go. Well, actually, no, they don't because they don't know that Missy was going to turn.
Exactly. It leaves that bittersweet tragedy is they'll continue fighting for eternity, but there was the end of the Master was going to help the Doctor, but they'll never find out. I think that's a really perfect end point for the character, but that still enriches further adventures in a weird Doctor Who-ish way. Is kind of how River Song is. We knew how River Song was going to die from the beginning we met her, but we've always it makes those River Song stories stronger because of it. I feel that would be the same thing with Missy.
No, I agree. I like that. You know, one person I remember watching a review for Series 11, and one person brought up an interesting fact. Who was the villain in Rosa again? What was his name? Space racist guy.
Yeah, Space Racist is what I was defaulting to. I can't remember his actual name.
Somebody said he should have been the meddling monk.
Huh.
Like he should have been like the updated. I'm now the cool meddling monk who's meddling with racist things.
I mean, I could see it.
I would like to see just various evil Time Lords come back. Like the monk.
The Ronnie.
The Ronnie. I remember when you used to think Missy was the Ronnie. I would love to see. I mean, not a villain, but I'd love to see Romana come back as a hero with companion because I miss Romana.
Mm-hmm.
Rassilon. Well, Rassilon I guess came back in Hellbent, but that was disappointing. More Time Lords villains. I mean, we have Gallifrey. Let's use it.
Yeah, I think that's a good point as well. Is the Time Lords as a classic Who villain, you don't normally see it that much, but they did have a major role in classic Who in just terms of who was in charge and the penance they put on the Doctor. I mean, it's the very reason why the Doctor had to go through one of his regenerations for the second Doctor is because the Time Lords got tired of his shit.
Yeah, that happens. But yeah, I'd love to see more Time Lord villains show up as well. Like, because they're back. You know, they didn't come back in the best way possible, or infamously came back, but they're back now. I kind of like to see like what they're doing now. The Time Wars ended, and sort of like the status quo is sort of returned. Omega, I'd love to see Omega. He's still kicking.
Yeah, I do. I would very much like to see, because one of my favourite things about Big Finish Doctor Who, which is the audiobook series for anyone unfamiliar, is it's very much this testing ground for the weirdest, wackiest ideas the BBC would never do. And I really, with how beautiful the latest series with Jodie actually did look, like it was shot really well, all the sets look fantastic, the alien planets look great. It's probably one of the better looking seasons of Doctor Who of all time. I really think you could go a lot weirder now. And we're starting to get little glimpses of that. We're starting to get little glimpses of more out there, more surreal, more meta Doctor Who episodes. Maybe not in the same way as Moffat, because what Moffat liked to do was he liked to do callbacks and references. I'm talking more in the kind of Grant Morrison, this weird, okay, space and time, how does that actually work when you start messing with it? A very good example would be the recent audio dramas with The Master. There was a lot and that was set during the Time War, and since it was set during the Time War, there was a lot of things that would happen during that which would change how the story was going because time was being messed with. If you do that on an episode basis now and again, I think I'd be really interested to see, and it would help Doctor Who stand out a little bit more than just generic sci-fi show.
Come on, Chris Chibnall. I believe in you.
I believe in you. You have the power.
I know.
Even someone like I feel like something that's desperately dying for a new reimagining from how they've been in New Who, and something especially nowadays in our era as we live in should be the most relevant Doctor Who villain of all time, is the Cyberman.
Yeah, which is funny because the Cybermen actually, I feel like during the Capaldi era, the Cybermen got a lot of. I mean, Cybermen appeared in the finale of Series 10 and Series 9. No, Series 8. My bad.
Yeah, but they what the Cybermen should be this like Black Mirror type horror of this is what humanity is going towards. Look how scary this is. But instead, they're just again defaulting to robot men rather than this is the future of humanity and like social integration and social media, and like you could get so deep into this kind of idea of like, okay, what are we doing with all this influence of technology? But it's always so surface level, and that annoys me because classic Who, surprisingly for how little technology was actually back then compared to how we have now, went more psychological with the Cybermen.
No, I agree. I liked how Series 10 kind of handled it and kind of connected to Spare Parts. Spare Parts, good audio drama.
Oh yeah.
That's the origin of the Cybermen. Um, I agree. I would love to see like a complete. I'd also like to see, my friend Red Leader Antilles, if he's listening, hi again. He's a big Cyberman fan. He likes Cybermen quite a bit. I'd like to see not only just the Cybermen, but kind of like I'd like to see the variation of Cybermen and women, cyber people we've been getting. Like we have the Telos Cybermen, the Mondasian Cybermen. We have the Cybermen now from the other dimension. We get, I guess, Missy Cybermen. Like, we have all these various factions of Cybermen, and I'm curious how they all interact with one another.
Yeah, you
Like,
could make a series about like a hive mind, or like this brainiac level Cyberman that comes in and tries to like unite all the different factions.
A Cyberman civil war.
Yeah, even something like that, where like they see imperfections in each other, which could be a very interesting. Like even these so-called perfect beings of like ultimate technology, they're still not happy when they see each other, kind of thing. I think that could be something good.
I've always thought I also want to see like another. I know we talked about the Daleks a little bit, but I'd like to see that kind of too, like Daleks with social media, 'cause, all the hate speech and stuff going on, like kind of like I don't know how that would what kind of story you would do, but they're like
The Daleks just run Cometsgate.
yes, they're on Twitter all the time. I think that the Suntarans are potato heads. But like maybe like you find out, oh, Daleks are using social media to enrage the humans and get them to hate more, so they can become more Dalek, and we can make more of them and stuff like that. And
Maybe, yeah. There's places Doctor Who could go. Maybe not even just like that. I was thinking just stuff like a Cyberman thing. You could go with that, but even just like if you want to go with classic villains in new situations, I think it leaves a lot of things open. Like the Sontarans, you could go really like if you wanted to go like really mature for the Sontarans, is you could start getting like war commentary, like war profiteering, or what that is to war, and like a Sontaran battlefield, and these people who are literally just bred to battle in war, and what does that do, and then how does that commentate on like US or English like occupations of these eastern countries. Like you could go really like Doctor Who's not ashamed to go more political and go more, I guess I should say more relevant, is Demons in Punjabi is a direct thing about like apartheid. So I feel like the stories are there. Doctor Who can take a mature audience, and I think it really should, because as much as we like to say Doctor Who is a family show, I think at the same time its child audience is a lot less than it used to be. I feel like a majority of Doctor Who fans now are teens to young adults to just general adults.
yeah, and that's why I'm still pretty positive about the Chibnall era, more or less. I know some people aren't. I am, because like they did Demons, they did Rosa. Chibnall had to say yes to those. I mean, he didn't write them. had the co-writing on Rosa, but I think that was more Mallory Blackman's, thing. But he said yes to those episodes, so he's definitely not afraid to do stuff like that. And I've been hearing things like Series 12 got delayed because he wanted more time because Series 11 was kind of a bit of a rush job.
Hmm.
Um, so like in Series 12, they're going to hopefully give the show a bit more resources and like maybe expand the directing and writing pool for the next season or series. So it's like like maybe now Chibnall will have a little bit more time to like go to those places. Like you didn't. It's not the ultimate freedom of like a Big Finish, which is just an audio drama. So you know, I feel like Big Finish has the advantage of going even further because we don't have the budget and whatnot. But I do think the show can definitely push in those directions under Chibnall.
Right, definitely.
And I'm still hopeful. Hopefully, well, Series 12 will either prove me right or wrong.
So I guess just to end up, I'll ask you like quick question, Joel. If you had to pick 3 villains to show up, and maybe have one of them be the big bad of the season, who would they be?
Davros, Sutek, and who would be the third one? How about no? Let's do the Ronnie. Let's do the Ronnie.
And which of them would you make the main villain of the season?
Uh, Davros, but my stipulation is he has to be the final villain of Jodie's arc.
Oh, okay.
Like I like saving Davros for the end again because like he's kind of like the Palpatine of Doctor Who. Like you don't want to waste him so early. Sutek, I would maybe Sutek and the Ron. You can honestly probably put them in the same season, kind of have like a working together kind of situation. But if I had to pick, I think maybe the Ronnie for like next season, kind of she can appear a couple times. I feel like she could have like more multiple appearances, kind of a situation, like a Missy situation.
Right.
And Sutek, maybe like your middle ground between Davros and this Ronnie. Although you could honestly switch out Sutek and Davros because Sutek is a god. So I wouldn't mind either way, but I'm just a Davros fanboy, so I would definitely save Davros for the end and maybe make Sutek sort of the middle ground kind of character.
No, I think that's fair. But yeah, if anyone who's actually interested in any Doctor Who, I'm actually very curious how many Doctor Who fans I have on this channel.
Who would you pick, though? Like, what would your big 3?
See, that's difficult. I'm thinking definitely the Master. I just always love whenever the Master turns up. One of my big disappointments with Moffat's era was that Matt Smith never got to go against the Master.
Davros too. That was
yeah. He missed out with that. Definitely the Master. We definitely like to see blanking. What's his the big time guy? In End of Time.
Rassilon?
Yeah, Rassilon. Don't know why his name just blanked me there. I would like to see Rassilon come back with a bit more of a vengeance just to make up for just his last appearance being so like there.
I'll say this, funny enough, in the latest Gallifrey Time War, which is the Gallifrey series of Big Finish, which is on Gallifrey, they had Rassilon, not played by the actor who played him in End of Time, but played by somebody else, Regeneration and all. They made Rassilon like essentially just an allegory for Donald Trump.
Wow.
Yeah, I mean, a lot like he's just consolidating power. He's not listening to anybody. He's just a tyrant who thinks he's better than everyone, kind of a situation. So it was really funny.
I think that would work. That could work now, and it would go into more of like Doctor Who getting a bit more political. So yeah, Rassilon, and then for the third one, I think the Cybermen. Those would be mine. But yeah, anyone who has what your 3 would be, any ideas on things you would like to see coming up in future seasons of Doctor Who, and maybe if you didn't mind the lack of classic villains, maybe you're more a fan of maybe it's time to introduce new villains and make them the new classics. I think that's a good argument as well. But yeah, thank you for joining me on this, Joel. I don't have a lot of people I can talk Doctor Who with, so I appreciated this.
I love talking Doctor Who and Big Finish and all that good stuff.
Definitely. And if you want to check out any more of these episodes or any more Big Finish stuff, I'll leave links in the description roundabout somewhere. But most of all, I hope you've enjoyed listening. Don't forget to share this for any other Doctor Who fans you like. And most of all, take it easy, folks.